On June 22, 2026, the United States Supreme Court handed down a major decision reinstating a murder conviction. The ruling closed a complex legal battle, but the crime at the center of it dates back nearly half a century. To understand how we got here, we have to trace the timeline all the way back to the morning of May 25, 1979. 6-year-old Etan Patz stepped out of his family's apartment in Manhattan's SoHo neighborhood. He was heading for his school bus stop. It was his very first time making the short trip alone. He never arrived. By that afternoon, the search had started, launching a cold case that would stretch across 4 decades. Public reaction was immediate. Within months, the common sight of children walking blocks to school alone or playing in city parks unsupervised became a source of intense community anxiety. Etan's face became deeply ingrained in the public consciousness. He was the first missing child to have his photo distributed nationwide by being printed on the side of milk cartons. The date he vanished, May 25th, was eventually declared Missing Children's Day, an observance that is now recognized internationally. Yet investigators had no body, no crime scene, and no suspect. For over 30 years, the legal system was left with a terrifying blank space. In 2012, a tip finally gave investigators a tangible lead. Police zeroed in on Pedro Hernandez. Back in 1979, he had worked as a clerk at a convenience store located near Ethan's bus stop. Hernandez confessed. He detailed how he lured the 6-year-old into the store's basement, strangled him, and threw his body in a nearby alley. Securing a conviction, however, proved difficult. The initial trial in 2015 ended in a deadlocked jury and a mistrial. Prosecutors tried him a second time in 2017. This time, the jury returned a guilty verdict, and Hernandez was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. This conviction became the catalyst for a technical constitutional fight over the validity of the confession itself. Years after the verdict, the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals stepped in and threw out the 2017 murder conviction. Hernandez's defense team argued the confession was false, fueled by mental illness, and extracted during roughly 7 hours of police questioning before his Miranda rights were ever read. This diagram shows how the appellate court viewed the issue. They split the interrogation into 2 events. During the trial, jurors asked the judge if they had to disregard the later recorded confession if they decided the earlier, unmirandized interrogation was involuntary. The judge told them no. The appeals court ruled that this instruction was clearly wrong and prejudicial to the defense. Because of that specific jury instruction, the appeals court erased the conviction. Prosecutors were suddenly staring down the prospect of a third trial. It highlights a tension in the justice system. There is an immense emotional demand for closure in a 47-year-old tragedy, but the courts must still weigh that against the constitutional protections required for a fair trial. That brings us back to June 2026. The U.S. Supreme Court took up the case, and in a 6-3 vote, reversed the appellate court. The justices based their decision on a specific piece of legislation, the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996, commonly known as AEDPA. AEDPA puts a tight leash on federal courts. It explicitly prevents a federal habeas court from throwing out a state-level conviction simply because they disagree with how the state court evaluated the evidence. The Supreme Court ruled the federal appellate panel overstepped its jurisdictional boundaries. They could not second-guess the New York trial judge's handling of the confession instructions. With that ruling, the 2017 conviction was officially reinstated. The Manhattan District Attorney reaffirmed the result, and Pedro Hernandez remains in prison. The disappearance that once changed how millions of families approached daily safety has now set a defining boundary for the reach of federal courts. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe to Neural Edge Publishing, explore our true crime archives, and follow us for ongoing coverage of the Supreme Court.